Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Super Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 1 college football predictions. So, starting off with Thursday's games, we have Central Michigan at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's coming off a Fiesta Bowl win last season. They did lose some key players, but they still have quarterback Spencer Sanders, who does need to limit turnovers. But I think they're going to start off the season with a win by a score of 31-13 over Central Michigan. Moving on, we have West Virginia against Pitt. This is the battle of the two former USC quarterbacks, JT Daniels for West Virginia, although he was also at Georgia last year, plus Keaton Slovis for Pitt. I think this should be a rather close game, as it is a rivalry game. But I think Pitt gets the win here, as they are the better team, 27-21. Next, we have VMI at Wake Forest. So Wake Forest is without Sam Hartman, and we really don't know how long they're going to be without him. And VMI is a FCS team. But even without Sam Hartman, this should still be an easy win for Wake Forest, 47-7. Moving to Friday's games, we have Western Michigan visiting Michigan State. Michigan State does need to replace Kenneth Walker, but they should be able to with Jalen Berger, the Wisconsin transfer. They have quarterback Peyton Thorne returning, plus a great wide receiver, Jaden Reed. Michigan State's secondary is terrible, but Western Michigan's quarterback has only attempted 5 passes in his career. So Michigan State should be okay, and I have them winning this game 37-17. Moving on to Saturday's games, we have Sam Houston against Texas A&M. So really this game is most likely going to be a blowout. Texas A&M does have a quarterback in Haynes King, who hasn't really played in a really long time because last year he broke his leg in like week 2 or 3. But Sam Houston has been really good, but at the FCS level, which is obviously below the FBS level. And they're going to start off the season playing a top 10 team. This should be an easy win for Texas A&M and a good tune-up to make sure they're ready for the season. I have Texas A&M getting the win easily, 44-10. Next, we have Colorado State at Michigan. So Michigan still doesn't have a true starting quarterback. Cade McNamara will start this game, but J.J. McCarthy is going to start the next game. They did lose several big players in the offseason, such as Daxton Hill, David Ajabo, Aiden Hutchinson, Hassan Haskins, and others. They do still have running back Blake Corum, but I don't know how easily they're going to be able to replace Ajabo and Hutchinson. I think Michigan should still easily get the win here, 45-13. Next, we have NC State against East Carolina. So this should actually be a pretty good game. NC State is expected to have a great season. They have an elite quarterback, Devin Leary. The defense returns 10 of 11 starters. And now ECU is a weird opponent. They've lost the last 2 games in this series, but NC State has lost 4 of the last 5 on the road against ECU. But I think NC State is going to end up getting the win in a close game on the road, 31-24. Up next, we have another really good game. This one is probably going to be one of the better games this week. We have Oregon visiting Georgia. So technically, it's a neutral site game, but it's in Atlanta, so it's essentially a Georgia home game. Oregon just hired Georgia defensive coordinator Dan Lanning as their head coach, and now he goes up against his former team. But Georgia lost 15 players to the NFL. They do still have several key players returning. Oregon gets Auburn transfer Bo Nix at quarterback, who has seen Auburn several times as he used to play in the SEC. But I do think the defending champion Georgia Bulldogs will get the win here, 34-24. Moving on, we have UTEP at Oklahoma. So the Brent Venables era begins in Oklahoma. They also have a transfer quarterback, Dylan Gabriel from UCF. Jeff Levy is their offensive coordinator, who was the UCF offensive coordinator when Dylan Gabriel was at UCF. And that duo combined to have a top 10 offense in the nation that season. So I expect a big offensive showing from Oklahoma, and I expect them to be good all season. Oklahoma wins this one 55-10. Up next, we have a tougher game, and that is Cincinnati at Arkansas. Cincinnati's coming off a college football playoff appearance, but they lost several key players. They lost their 2 top corners, Kobe Bryant and Sauce Gardner. Quarterback Desmond Ridder, running back Jerome Ford, as well as others. Receiver Alec Pierce. This should be a close game, but I like Arkansas to get the win here, led by quarterback KJ Jefferson, who's a great dual-threat quarterback. So Arkansas gets the win at home, 30-24. Next, we have another game on the tougher side, and that is an in-state matchup between Houston and UTSA. So both teams had good seasons last year, both went 12-2. I could see UTSA with the upset here, but I do think Houston will get the win here on the road. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair, but I have Houston taking this one home 38-34. Next up, we have Troy visiting Ole Miss. So Ole Miss lost several players this offseason, including quarterback Matt Corral. They wanted to transfer Jackson Dart from USC. They also have transfer running back Zach Evans from TCU, and he was really good there. But I think this is going to be a pretty easy win for Ole Miss as they get the win 42-10. Next up, we have BYU at USF, or the University of Southern Florida. Two good quarterbacks here. BYU has a returning dual threat quarterback Jaron Hall, and USF got Baylor transfer Jerry Bohannon, who was good for Baylor last season. He did have a hamstring injury late in the season, but he was the quarterback that led them all the way up until the Big 12 title game. I think this should be a win for BYU, as outside of Bohannon, USF really isn't great. So I have BYU 32-24. Next, we have Rice at USC. So this game should be a blowout. We're going to get our first look at Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, Travis Dye, Jordan Addison, and others at USC. I think it's going to be a big win. I still have concerns about USC in the trenches, plus their defense. But I really don't think Rice is going to be a match for USC. I have USC easily winning 56-7. Next up, we have Utah visiting Florida. This is another tough game. I've seen a lot of people pick Florida to get the upset here. It could happen in the Swamp in prime time, but Utah has a great 1-2 punch on offense with dual threat quarterback Cam Rising and a great running back Tavion Thomas. Florida also has a quarterback with a ton of potential in Anthony Richardson. I think it's going to be a close, entertaining game, but I think Utah will get the win, and Florida will lose their first home opener since 1989. Utah wins very close on the road, 31-28. Next up, we have Albany visiting Baylor. This was a very easy game to predict. Albany is an FCS team that went 2-9 last season, while Baylor is coming off a Big 12 title win, and they're expected to contend for the Big 12 title again this season. Baylor gets the extremely easy win and wins 59-3. Up next, we have another FCS versus FBS team, and that is Illinois State against Wisconsin. So Illinois State did not have the greatest season last year. They went 4-7, and Wisconsin hasn't lost to an FCS opponent since 2006. And I think Wisconsin takes this one home, winning by a final score of 49-6. Next up, we have Miami, Ohio against Kentucky. So Kentucky has a great quarterback, Will Levis, returning, who was a big part of helping them to a 10-win season last year. Kentucky is also 21-1 in home openers against non-Power 5 teams. And I think they're going to make it 22-1 as they're going to get the win over Miami, Ohio, 42-17. Next up, we have Utah State against Alabama. So Alabama is a national title contender, as they always are. Utah State had a strong season last year. They went 11-3. They returned 12 starters, but I still think Alabama will easily get the win as they're Alabama. I have Alabama taking this one home 52-13. Next up, we have a really good game, and that is Notre Dame visiting Ohio State. So you could say this is going to be a really close game. You could say this is going to be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. It's going to be a great game. You have a great offense in Ohio State against a good defense in Notre Dame's defense, and a good offense in Notre Dame's offense, and a decent defense in Ohio State's defense. And Notre Dame does have a good offense, because when you look at it, last year they had a pretty good offense. The offensive line play was not great. I expect it to be a lot better. Plus, they have a more dynamic quarterback in Tyler Buckner, although he hasn't started a college game. But I do think he's going to be really good for the Irish this season. But I do have Ohio State winning this one in a very entertaining 37-31 win against Notre Dame in a top 5 showdown to start the season. And our final game is on Monday, and that is Clemson against Georgia Tech, and that is in Atlanta, so it's another neutral site game. Clemson was almost upset by Georgia Tech last season, but the previous year they won like 73-7. I think it's going to be a bounce back season for Clemson, and I think it's going to start with a good solid win over Georgia Tech, winning 31-7. So those are my week 1 college football predictions. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you agree with my predictions, disagree, and why. If you disagree, let me know what game you disagree with and why in the comments below. Make sure to check out the community tab of my channel where you can vote on who you think will win some of this week's big games. So that's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you in the next video.